Check.
Check. Mine feels a little low to me, like the sound, like the.
Just move your mouth a little closer.
Check. I mean, I feel like I'm at a good angle here. Check.
Okay. Do it again.
I don't know about you, but check is right on the money.
That's good.
Yeah? Let me hear your voice.
Check.
The whole thing feels low.
I just have a louder voice than you.
I mean, all of it sounds low. You think?
It must be your headphones because it sounds normal to me.
Check. All right. If it sounds normal to you, we'll go for it.
Try now.
Check. Oh, yeah. That sounds more like what it normally sounds like.
That just turns the volume of the headphones up.
Okay.
Those are my notes.
I'm just looking real quick.
There's
Okay.
some extra stuff in there.
Be like, we have a guest.
I guess. Oh. All right, guys, welcome to the Digital Barbell Podcast. Thanks as always for being here. Thank you guys who take the time to leave us ratings and reviews. We greatly appreciate it. If you've never done that for us, we would just owe you the biggest debt of gratitude. It doesn't take too long to smash the 5-star button or even type out a couple sentences. It really helps people find the podcast. I've said this before, but we have actually gotten clients, that have just been suggested this podcast, and they start listening. They're like, "Hey, I jive with what these people are all about. Let me get on the phone and see if we'd be a good fit." And that has the potential to change their life. So that is pretty stinking awesome. We have a special guest on the podcast today. She's standing right here to my left. She's been on this podcast many, many times. She's co-owner of this company, actually. So yeah, I'm going to kind of dig into some stuff with you today. But before
you might want to tell them who you is if they're not watching.
Oh yeah, some people aren't watching this on YouTube. It's Blakley. She's standing right here. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Did you have any trouble finding the place?
It was easy.
Okay.
The directions were great.
You had to walk 10 feet back from your desk to be here in the studio. But before we get into the topic, we do have a sponsor of this episode. We're sponsored by Cowboy Pools. Oh. Let's talk about Cowboy Pools.
No one knows what Cowboy Pools are.
Cowboy Pools is a brand name. Maybe other companies use this. I don't know. But a Cowboy Pool is a brand name here. But basically what it is people who don't want to go to the effort, expense, whatever of having a swimming pool in their house. You buy one of these giant galvanized steel, they're feeding troughs for animals, and you put it in your yard and you fill it up with water. You put a pump on it. You chlorinate
it. You're using the term pool very loosely. It's an
above ground pool.
It's not a pool though. It's like 2 feet high. It's not a pool.
I mean, what's the definition of a pool?
I would think something you could swim in. You can't swim in this. You couldn't even stretch your body out.
I'm going to be backstroking in circles in this thing. It's 8 feet across. I'm pretty sure.
It's awesome. It's going to be awesome. But yes.
So we picked up the pool.
I don't know what to call it though. Yeah.
This just give you an idea of what this is going to be like. We picked it up at our local feed store.
We picked up the stock tank.
Yes. We borrowed a trailer. We brought this thing home. We rolled it off the trailer, laid it down in the backyard, put some water in it to test for leaks. No leaks. This is Memorial Day weekend coming up. We're going to go pick up some gravel, some sand to put underneath it. We ordered the pump off of Amazon. It's going to be delivered.
Yeah, so it's going to have like a pump and it's going to be chlorinated. And last year we used basically a blow up baby pool. I mean, the big baby pool, but we got one for
a big baby.
We got one for our nieces and nephews, and they were like, well, this is nice. And so we used it all summer, but within 2 days we had to dump the water, and I didn't feel great about I don't want to waste water every weekend. So this will be like something we can fill up, and it will circulate like a pool and, be clean water. We got a cover for it, and we'll be able to use it without having to waste water.
Yeah.
That's the benefit of it.
This is going to be high class.
Yeah. There is a company here local to Austin. I saw they just expanded it into Houston, but it is called Cowboy Pools, and they do this specifically. They make them really nice.
Yeah,
so we're doing the DIY version of this.
We're going to be into this thing for less than $1,000.
Closer to like $500 for the whole thing. And it's, they sell them for several $1,000s, I think.
We weren't ready to quite commit to that yet.
But it'll be cool, over time if we can build a little, seating area around it, and it's going to be cool.
I know that our niece and nephew will appreciate it when they come to visit.
Yeah.
And we'll probably have a hard time keeping Lacey out of it too. She loves to swim.
That's true.
Okay, so we thought about this topic. What we're going to talk about today is Blakley's experience with sport growing up, the things that she learned through that, the things that she didn't learn through that, kind of the different pros and cons of each thing that she did, and how that ultimately led to where you are now with kind of our style of training now. Maybe we'll get into kind of the evolution of that a little bit, but ultimately how it's led you to where you are now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think like the overarching theme was like I've played a lot of different sports growing up, but didn't really learn a lot about like what is exercise, what is practice, and what is training, and how do you get strong, and
Yeah,
all the important things I know now I didn't really learn from.
Yeah, because like when you're at a place in your life and you know something about something, you're they call it the curse of knowledge. Like you already know a lot about fitness now. You know a lot about strength training, and it's sometimes good to take a step back and like put yourself in the previous version of yourself's shoes or in somebody else's shoes who doesn't know the things that just like not take those things for granted.
Yeah.
And the bigger picture of why we're talking about this too is because we now have enrollment open for our 12-week strength program, Digital Barbell Built. And all the things that we're going to talk about today, we take those principles and use them in this program to help people get strong. And we're limiting this to only 10 people going through it. This is a program that's previously been retired that we're just going to release one time in 2023. And we'd love to help people get strong because we see the positive impact that it has in their life and their mindset, their confidence, their health, all those things. So that's one of the reasons that we're talking about this. And if you're listening to this the day this podcast comes out, don't worry, I'll be done with this commercial soon. But the price for this program, it's a 12-week program. If you're listening to today, Thursday, May 25th. No.
Today's the
May
24th.
25th. Yeah,
Today's the 24th.
Today's tomorrow. So
sorry. Yes.
We're recording this on Wednesday. Tomorrow, May 25th. Today's the last day to register at $397. The price goes up on Friday to $497.
Nice.
It's still a great deal for a coached 12-week program for that price, but why not save $100 if you can? You can definitely read more about it and send us any questions that you have at digitalbarbell.com/built. Okay, so let's talk. You mentioned that you played a lot of different sports, but some people might not even consider really the first thing that you did a sport.
Heck yeah, it's a sport.
Well, you'll convince us of that by the end of this, I'm sure, but the first thing that you really did was when you were about 9 years old, and it was jump roping, if I'm not mistaken. Some people might
jump rope team.
Tell us about what the heck is a jump rope team, first of all. How'd you get into that, and what was that experience like?
Well, I grew up in Louisiana, so jump roping was a sport in Louisiana. And the jump rope team consisted of about 15 girls, and I don't know why it was only girls now that it was just girls, but 15 girls, and we would travel around our city and even the state and even out of state performing choreographed routines. A lot of times we went to like nursing homes and just it was just like a lot of it was about entertaining people that they would invite us there to do these routines. And then we would go to like competitions every year, and there's different events at the competition.
You know what I'm picturing is that TV series that we watched that followed the cheerleading team from Navarro
similar.
State. Yeah, I don't think they were going to nursing homes, but Yeah. So how in the world did you get into that? Was that, you said it was a popular thing in Louisiana?
Yeah, it was a popular thing in Louisiana, and it was just.
Were your parents like, you're going to jump rope?
No, it was just. I think it was something I just wanted to do. Maybe my best friend growing up wasn't in it, so I really don't know why I chose to do it. Honestly, I think the appeal of like getting out of class and going on, to perform was there. I really don't know, but yeah, I remember I did it from 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, and then I transferred out of that school. But yeah, 4th, 5th, and that's when we moved to Texas. So 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, I did jump rope team.
So what were the main takeaways from being on a jump roping team and just learning those routines?
Well, little did I know I would later in life get into CrossFit, and that would really help me with my double unders and my jump rope skills. So that was like the number one plus. But, it was all like teamwork and practice. We practiced a lot. We practiced several times a week after school. to learn a new routine, our coach would actually have us all like spend the weekend at her house, and because her daughter was on the team, and so we would all spend the weekend there, and we would just like crunch time to learn a new routine.
Yeah,
it was cool. It was fun, because you're just with your friends. But
hold on, I'm gonna say something about that. Like, those. You see people do these kinds of routines like you're talking about. That is a lot of things to memorize.
Yeah.
And you said that the way that you did it was by practice.
Practice, yeah.
How has that kind of translated into your fitness now? Like learning new skills. Like I'm sure as soon as you start to try to do something now, you're just like instantly good at it, right?
No.
You don't have to practice at all.
I guess it taught me about breaking things down. Like if you think about a routine usually played to like a song, like this is going to date me, but one of our routines was to the Ghostbusters song. And one of them was to that song, Jump, Jump for Your Love, or whatever.
Cliche, Blakley.
The Pointer Sisters. So really old. We're talking about some old songs here. But anyway, I know I could do both of those routines for you right now.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. It's stuck. But
we're definitely going to get some video of that.
You didn't just learn, you broke it down into these sections. And so, when I got later in life into CrossFit and stuff, it was like, okay, you want to learn a complicated movement. You need to break this down into doable sections, like start with the easiest part and build till you can do the entire thing.
Progression.
Yeah. And I think it really helped with the way that you think. Like when I do like workouts and stuff, I like enjoy the counting side of it, and kind of getting lost in that. And I think that probably is something that stemmed from this time at jump rope, because you had to count. Like it was all about counting your steps.
Yeah.
So
like a cadence.
That's one of the things that I really took to CrossFit from, is like, ooh, I'm like, I count everything. I mean, if I walk from here to the house, I probably count my steps. It's kind of strange, but I do. But I think now that I'm just thinking about this, I'm thinking it all has stemmed from that.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned how it was like a team sport too.
Yeah, because you had to stay in sync with your teammates. During the routines were teams. It was just like, you're out there, all of you guys are out there at the same time, and you need to stay in sync, kind of like a dance, like a cheer. But then when we went to the competitions, some of those were individual. So the competitions were like double Dutch, what that is, egg beater, which is like where four people turn the rope and they stand like crisscross each other, and it's a big giant egg beater looking thing, and you get in the middle and you do some tricks. And we did a lot of work with pogo sticks back then, like
you're also dating yourself.
These little pogo sticks that you would squeeze between your legs and do routines on a pogo stick. And then this thing, I'm going to get way too, I'm geeking out about this, but this thing called it was like a pogo ball. And you had a ball with a platform.
Everybody knows what those are. Come on.
Yeah. And we would do a lot of stuff on those too.
Really? For jump rope?
Oh yeah, you jump roped on the pogo ball.
I'm pretty sure we still have one of those here that you refuse to throw away.
Yeah.
It's totally flat and decrepit.
If I jumped on it, it'd probably just like crack the plastic. I never had a pogo stick of my own because we had those at school. Those were high dollar pogo sticks.
Pogo sticks are real bougie. If you got a pogo stick, don't come talk to me. You're a different class than I am.
All right.
Anything else you want to say about takeaways from that?
I should probably mention the name of the team. Shout out to the Fancy Feet.
Yeah, if any of the Fancy Feet are listening to this, let's reconnect. Let's put the team back together. Okay, so that was your first exposure to exercise and fitness, really. It was a team sport, but
it was a team sport.
Pretty sure you worked your cardiovascular system quite a bit doing those routines.
Yeah, and I should have developed I remember being
giant calves.
And as I got into high school, I was like, why are my calves so big? I went had skinny legs back then, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have these giant calves.
Fast forward to 2020 when we're buying ski boots where we lived in Boise, and they were having a hard time finding ski boots that fit you because your calves. And the very first, the ones they fitted you with and we bought, we went up the mountain and you were crying trying to walk from the parking lot to the lift. And you had to go rent boots. And
we brought him back, and the guy was like, "You have really big calves. You don't fit in these boots. I don't know who sold you these." I was embarrassed.
I think he was nice. He said you have athletic calves.
Thank you.
So thanks to what was the name of the team? The Flying Flippers.
The Fancy Feet.
Fancy Feet for helping her grow those calves. Okay, let's move on past jump rope team. Fast forward a little bit in your your athletic career.
Sure.
What was the next thing that you got involved in?
It was during the same time frame, but during the summer, I was actually a competitive kneeboarder.
What everybody knows what wakeboarding is, and then what is the new one called? Where you like wake surfing?
Yeah.
What is kneeboarding?
And people know it like water skiing. Water skiing slalom. It's a kneeboard. It's you strap in on your knees. You're in a kneeling position on a board, and you pull behind a boat, and you do things. So we got into this. When we lived in Louisiana, we belonged to like a water ski club. We didn't have a boat of our own, but I guess it was through my stepdad's work that all these people kind of got together, and we ended up. It was about 30 to 45 minutes from where we lived in Baton Rouge. But we would go there every weekend, and we hosted tournaments there. And I got into competing at that time. I was the youngest competitor at most of the tournaments back then. But yeah, it was. That was probably the highlight of my athleticism.
That was you peaked?
I peaked when I was.
It was a new sport. Like
it was a new sport.
You were like setting records.
It was a new sport at the time, and now it's an old sport, and they don't really do that anymore. People wakeboard. People do the same kind of thing, but on wakeboards now. But it was a new sport at the time, and I probably like saw it through like.
You can go on YouTube though, and there's videos of
of
those old times and people now like that still do it, doing some amazing tricks.
Yeah.
What were your events there?
When a kneeboard tournament, you did you had 3 events. Event 1 was slalom course, so they would set up a slalom course of 8 balls that you had to go.
What slalom is in case
people know what slalom is. Like it's like you go zigzag around balls. So there's eight balls in the course. The boat went through straight, and you went through the balls, and there was like a close ball and a far ball, and you got 1 point to go around the closest ball, and 2 points if you run around the outside ball.
It's harder.
And you got to start. You picked your boat speed and your rope length, and every time you successfully made it through, they sped up the boat and they shortened the rope.
Make it harder.
It harder and harder, and you just went through the course as many times as you could until you missed a ball. So, of course, you could start with one. You can get all these points by going on the outer balls until the last run, you're probably like hitting the inner balls because your rope is so short, and you really like had to reach your body around. And
I think even though I grew up in Florida on the beach and on rivers, like I think going with you kneeboarding when we first started dating was the first time I'd ever kneeboarded. It was harder than I thought it was going to be, which makes me think of back to the practice element. Like you probably didn't start out very good at kneeboarding.
Right.
Or maybe you did. I don't know. Maybe you're just naturally good at it.
But no, I wasn't that good at it.
But all those weekends going out and practicing, got you to the point where you were competitive. And I'm looking at all those trophies over there on the shelf.
Well, so that's the first event. Second event, you did tricks. So you had 2, I don't remember how much time you had, but basically it was in front of the audience because there'd be like an audience sitting there watching the tournament, but you had maybe 30 seconds to do as many tricks as you could. You had 2 passes. So you just accumulated points based on the tricks you did. Different tricks were worth different points. So you just bumping out tricks. If you fell, you got one more chance because you had 2 passes, boom, back through, and then you just accumulated your points. Yeah. And then third event, when I started, like I said, this was like the Bayou Club that we went, the ski club that we went to was like one of the first kneeboard tournaments were hosted there. So this was in the 80s, but in the infancy of the sport. So the third event was turns. So you went through that same course and you just did as many turns as you could, just like 360s.
It's ridiculous.
Just 360s. And that became like way too easy. People got like really good at doing way more advanced tricks. So that went away after a few years, and it was flips. It's how many flips you could do in a row.
Too many people were throwing up.
Too many people were just like, turns is way too easy. I can get so many turns. So those were the 3 events.
Okay. What did this time of kneeboarding kind of teach you as far as like athleticism and discipline?
I mean, I don't think I felt like an athlete doing this. I think it was like a cool thing to do, but I mean, I had to practice my family basically sacrificed their summers for me to practice every weekend. Cause like I said, we didn't own a boat, so they would take me down there. I'd be able to practice. And then during the week I had a ski handle attached to our fence.
Really?
And I would do like handle work, like, doing the turns and you had to
Did you
practice.
Sit on a lazy Susan and
no, I just stood, but you had to like pull it in and
Yeah.
and it's a lot of it's like a lot of handle work, like handing off the handle around your body a lot as you twist and flip and do other things. So just practicing that kind of stuff. So it was practice.
I imagine it had to become like muscle memory.
And I didn't, I ended up like, as I got into high school, we moved to Texas and we didn't live in, by the bayou anymore. And it wasn't as fun for me to practice because it was like me going, my family ended up buying a boat so that I could practice here. Well, I say here in Houston.
Yeah.
And like we found a slalom course I could use and all, I was still trying to go through the motions. And as I got into high school, I kind of like stopped liking it. I was like, I want to do the things that high school, the people in high school are doing. No one else is kneeboarding.
Right.
I'm like out here by myself in the boat, and now that I think about it, I should have kept doing it. It was cool. I was cool being out on the boat every weekend, but I felt like I was being taken away, I think, from my friends because I was like, I have to go practice.
Yeah. I think as we get older with it, that kind of situation happens a lot. We look back and we're like, I should have enjoyed that more. I should have kept doing that thing. But in the time, we want to do what's cool.
Yeah. So I transferred to swim team. I was like, I'm going to be on the swim team instead.
When was that?
That was sophomore year in high school.
Okay. Did you have to pick an event, or how does that work?
The coach picks for you just based on what you're good at.
What was besides getting up out of the water and back on your kneeboard when you fell off? What was your experience with swimming before you joined a swim team?
I was on a swim team when I was young in Baton Rouge, and I was pretty good. And then I ended up.
Don't be so conceited.
But then I ended up kneeboarding so much that I didn't do the swim team anymore. So then there was a big gap in that. And me and my friend went and did like one of those summer leagues in our summer between 9th and 10th grade. And so then we both decided, let's be on the swim team.
Okay. So what events did you get picked to do? Do you remember?
I was really good at the breaststroke. That was my jam.
Yeah.
And then everything else was like you had to like fill in places. You were forced to do like I did the breaststroke and the medley.
What's the medley?
The medley is where you do all four. You do freestyle, backstroke, breaststroke, and butterfly.
One person does all of them.
Yeah, individual medley. You do all of them.
Okay.
So you did like
it's been too long since the Summer Olympics.
2 laps of each movement.
What was so I'm sensing a theme of like practice. We had a lot of practice in the jump rope. We had a lot of practice with the water skiing, and we had some teamwork.
So much practice
jump rope.
in the swim team. Yeah.
I think don't swim team people like practice early in the morning?
Yes, both. I got to school like in the dark. We practiced before school. School started at 7:15, and so you had to be out of the pool and dry and in regular clothes at 7:15. So I think practice started in the 5:30 or so a.m. hour. I remember getting up very early as a high schooler, being like, "This is crazy." And then we practiced after school. We mostly did 2-a-days during swim team. Yeah, I don't know why. Now that I think about it, I don't know why we had to practice twice a day, but we did.
Huh.
Yeah. Not all season. Like this was like during the.
Well, they do in football. They do 2-a-days in football.
There's a swim season, so during the season we practiced twice a day. And during the off season, our coach made us do water polo just to stay in the water in shape and stuff. We did water polo as a sport.
Keep your conditioning up.
Keep our conditioning, but we didn't have to practice as much.
I think water polo is probably really hard.
I think it was fun.
I'd need to try that.
The weird thing about water polo is like, I always thought it was weird. You couldn't have, and this is again a high school thing. Like you had to like have your nails clipped below the surface so you couldn't
scratch
cut
people?
Anybody and like to
on purpose.
Yes.
Like,
Oh yeah, people would scratch and you're just
what?
like. So every day, every tournament, you had to like show out your nails. And they would look at everybody's fingernails to make sure you didn't have long nails.
I wonder if they do that in the Olympics now.
Probably, I don't know.
Learning all kinds of
like weapons.
Okay, so a lot of dedicated practice. Swimming is kind of like an individual sport, or is it more of a team sport? Would you say?
It's an individual sport overall. I mean, your team, your swim team is like trying to make it like qualify people to go to like state, and you as a team you have to be able to do that, but you're the most of the
competitive side's
most
individual.
of the competitive side is individual. Yeah, most of the the word.
Okay, so besides swimming, what did you do anything else in high school?
I played soccer.
All right. So sophomore year swimming, when did soccer come into the picture?
Probably around the same time. It was just the off season of that. I don't remember. Yeah, about the same time of maybe freshman. Maybe I started that earlier. But
I feel like I can picture one of your soccer pictures that
I was
comes up,
pretty
like
young
maybe it's
when
up
I
at your
started.
parents' house or something that we see.
Again, I'm just a team sport full of practice.
Yeah,
I
what
would
was
say.
practice for? Because I think like now we're getting into a little more mainstream of a sport, soccer.
What?
I mean, swimming.
Swimming
There's
is
definitely less people on the swim team out of a high school than play soccer across the whole school. Soccer is more mainstream. So I'm
Okay.
just trying to think about like what is the different practice. I feel like you're getting into a little bit more like maybe they're going to put you in the gym. Maybe
well. They did put us in the gym for swim team.
you're okay.
So once a week we went to the gym, and literally our coach, just like the boys and girls, we all went in the gym together. There was no rhyme or reason. There was nothing, no like,
Go exercise.
it was just like, go in here and use the equipment. And like now that I know things, and maybe it's different now, I don't know.
Yeah, it's gotta
as
be.
stuff has progressed, but like we were told nothing. And so we didn't know what we were doing. We just played around on the machines. I remember spending a ton of time on the leg press machine because I thought it was cool to just be able to lift. And you're like, I can lift 200 pounds. Like you're just pushing with your legs. And we didn't,
So not a lot of formality or deliberateness with your training.
not at all
at that time.
no like, no education on like, let's build some strength in your arms, let's build some strength in your legs for kicking, or, it was just like practice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. Like,
And same story for soccer.
same story for soccer, practicing skills, repeat, drills and all of the practice, but that is about it.
A lot more teamwork in soccer though.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, they just threw you in the weight room for soccer too, or was that?
No, there's no weight room. just all the cardio.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what were the main takeaways from swimming and soccer combined?
Just learning how to practice.
Kind of being dedicated to the practice side of things.
Dedicated to like, actually probably swimming taught me how to like hurt a little bit. Like
Push into the pain
Push
cave.
into the pain. Swimming was a painful sport that I think like,
Lungs are hurting.
no, the limbs. I remember me and my friend used to like put icy hot on our body to try not to feel it.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't love swimming because of that. It hurts.
Yeah.
And there's nowhere you can go. It's kind of like being on like a rower to me.
Yeah.
Like if you're running, you can kind of like stop and walk, and it's not as much of a big of a deal as it is if you're on like a rower or a treadmill. You're kind of like locked in on this machine.
Yeah.
And that's how it feels like in a pool. You're pushing, and you can't just like stop in the middle of the pool. Like you got to get to the other side. And even if you slow down a little bit, it still hurts.
Yeah.
So I think that taught me just like how to push into some pain, and that overall I'm going to be okay if I push into the pain. But
That's a good point.
yeah.
So, okay, high school was over. Didn't do anything athletic through college, right?
No.
Just there was a basketball course across from your basketball court,
Yeah.
not course, across from your parents' house when we started dating.
Yeah.
But I don't think you were really out there slam dunking.
No.
So the next thing that I'm in the picture now,
Oh,
so
gosh.
I know I have a little more insight into this time period. But the next thing I remember was, I guess it was after we were married, we lived close to a 24-hour fitness, and we got memberships there, or maybe you got one first. I was not interested in exercise at all at that point.
Yeah.
And you started going to classes there.
Our friend who actually lives next door to us now,
Small world.
small world, invited me to come to like a kickboxing or one of those type of classes.
Yeah.
And we started getting into the kickboxing classes.
What was
and
that
the
like?
step classes. Those were fun. It was like choreographed dances and stuff.
Similar to the jump roping.
Similar, yeah, but still
Well,
not.
I remember I went to a couple of those classes once I finally joined, not the kickboxing,
Yeah.
but the one where it's like you get a
Oh,
step.
Taibo. Taibo, that's what it was
Yeah.
back then. It was
Billy
Taibo.
Blank's Taibo.
Yeah, that's what we were doing. It was, oh man, it was so fun. The song, just like these
Yeah.
they played a song and you learned a routine.
Yeah. And then you moved on to the, like, I don't know if this is what they're really called, but like the body pump classes
Yeah,
where we
had a body bar.
you get
and
your
a
body
step.
bar. Did you get dumbbells in that too?
It was like a body bar, one of those padded body bars. That was about it.
And then like a 6-inch step.
Yeah.
And
I can't really remember what you did in there, but yeah,
you did.
That was your equipment.
Yeah, you followed along with the instructor at the front and did whatever they mimicked for you, and it was set to music also. And I just remember those things being incredibly hard to keep up with the pace that the instructor was doing. You and Christina could do it no problem, but I was dead. But
it's a super lightweight and it's 1,000 reps,
right?
And it doesn't really feel like you did anything after you're done except for sweat.
Yeah, you might be incredibly sore too, just from the total.
Especially in the beginning, yeah.
Yeah.
The total number of reps, and which is like one of those things that feels like if you're that sore, you're like, oh man, I'm working.
Yeah. I'm gonna get lean and
I'm gonna. Yeah, but I don't feel like anything ever happened to me physically from doing that. Like it was just like something to do. Like almost like I feel like I should exercise now. I'm in my 20s or whatever. Like I should probably exercise. And that was the thing we did. We tried spin. I hated spin. Like we tried a few things at the gym. Never like really did the free weights or anything, the machines at the gym. I was just like kind of intimidated by the whole middle section of the gym. This was like you walked in the gym, you went over to your little room where this was, and it was,
It would have been like a flashback to going into the gym during swimming, probably. It'd be like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, what am I supposed to do with all these machines? I was never taught what to do. I was never taught how to lift weights or anything.
That's probably the value of those exercise classes is like, at least you have somebody telling you exactly what to do.
Exactly.
Even if it's not what moves you towards your goals.
Yeah, and in those gyms, you're like paying for a membership already. You're like, okay, I'm paying my whatever, $30 a month, whatever it costs to get in. And this, at least I get an instructor in here.
Yeah.
If I want an instructor on the weight side, you had to pay extra to have one of the personal trainers follow you around.
Yeah. Or just like go find somebody who's jacked and follow them around, do what they do. It's like grocery shopping, following a thin person around.
Right.
Like, what are you putting in your basket?
That was the extent of like that time there. Like I said, I don't really feel like I ever got any physical changes out of it or learned anything. It was just like something to do.
Yeah.
I felt like I had to do it.
And knowing what you know now, it's because you were just exercising. You weren't training, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. And you were just using a 20-pound body bar week after week.
Yeah.
And you weren't repeating any of the same moves.
No progressions.
Yeah. Okay. So then moved on to boot camp. We don't have to spend a lot of time talking about boot camp.
Same exact thing on.
Except you're out.
You're outside.
You're either outside freezing or outside sweating.
Yeah. And it's 5 a.m.
Right. I joined you at a lot of those boot camps too. It was humbling.
Again, it was like, okay, I should be exercising. My friend is doing this. Let's go do this.
And it was better than doing nothing.
Better than doing nothing. And I felt like I was working my butt off because it was 5
hard.
a.m. and it was hard.
Getting
we were
up
running up hills and I felt very accomplished doing it. I don't feel like I ever really got any aesthetics from it.
Do 500 mountain climbers. It's hard.
It's hard.
But you're not going to change. Nothing will change about your body or your strength. Okay, so let's fast forward. You did the boot camp thing up until
we moved to Tennessee. And we found CrossFit.
And that's where, and I think this is a really cool story that somebody I went to high school with had just started doing CrossFit in like 2008. And like she would post about it on Facebook, as people do with CrossFit. They talk about it. And we were moving and we were losing our boot camp. And I was like, well, I want to keep a little bit of this momentum going.
Because you had started getting into it.
So I reached out to her and I was like, hey, what's this CrossFit thing that you're talking about? She's like, blah, blah, blah. Here's what it is. I'm like, okay, sounds cool. So we looked, and there was one in the city we were moving to. Boom. We were into CrossFit. There was one. That's how it was back in those days, before there was 100 in every city.
I know.
All right. So this table shaking too much for you. Let's talk about getting into CrossFit. Kind of keeping in the context of everything you've done up until that point. Like, what was your first thought when we first got into it? And like, what did you like about it? And what did you not like about it?
I think instantly, our first class I remember was, we did like an intro class, and that was kind of like, I was probably like intimidated by it a little bit. But it was just like, oh, this is going to be
Because really, you didn't have any experience with barbells.
Well, from our friend, Chris.
That's true.
We had lifted in our friend's garage. So I had done deadlifts and squats and presses.
Terrible form.
And flip-flops, but not in a structured way.
Right.
I will have to give props to Chris. He definitely taught us about form. We already knew how to move, and we already knew. I wasn't like intimidated by a barbell. I knew how to hold a barbell. I couldn't press a barbell. I couldn't press the men's barbell over my head, but at least I knew I wasn't intimidated by picking it up. But anyway, we did this intro class, and he's like, okay, you can join. And I remember our first class was really hard. I was like, that is some hard stuff. Like, and like one of the first weeks we did Karen, which is 150 wall ball.
Our second workout was 150 burpees for time.
No, it was wall ball, Karen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't long thereafter that we did
it. It was Karen. And I was like, I will never do that again in my life. Like, that was the worst thing I've ever done. And because it's the same movement for 150 times. And this guy was not the best coach. Like, there was no scaling. Like we were first weekend, I would never let a first week client with no, maybe we seemed athletic. I don't know, but I would never let them do. He was just
looking at me.
I would never let them do full on Karen.
Yeah.
But anyway, we did it. We survived. And I don't know, but I liked the pain. I think I liked the pain from swimming. I liked you were trying to beat a time and I was trying to beat you or trying to beat the people in the class. You got a score. I liked the competitiveness of it. There's something about it that just instantly hooked me. I was like, this is cool.
Yep.
It's kind of like back to like what I used to feel like when I did all these other sports.
And it was a totally different stimulus than the boot camp and the body pump and all that. So anytime you start,
different every time too.
Yeah. Anytime you start something new, whether it's like optimal or not,
right,
you're going to get that newbie gains phase where you make some pretty rapid progress in the beginning. I think we both saw that.
We had moved to a new city and you're like with these groups of people and you're meeting people and this is a fun hour. You're talking with people. You're just like, everybody in there in the room is like kind of suffering with you. And then you all are like comrades after that. You're like, yeah, that was awesome. And you talk and you hang out. We would hang out with them. Sometimes everybody would meet up at like a bar or something sometimes. And there was days where we would do like team workouts. He would make us carry like so much. This place was like upstairs in like a big facility. We're like, okay, we're going to work out outside today. Everybody grab like 4 pieces of equipment. I'm like, what?
We're taking it outside.
We take it down outside and do some workouts. But it was cool. It was all like, everybody around you is doing the same thing and they're all suffering and you're like, okay, I can do this too.
And there was a lot of practice involved in that too.
A lot of practice.
We had never done clean and jerk and, snatches. So you had to learn how, kipping pull-ups and all that stuff.
Right. And you saw progressions. You saw like, I remember doing some workouts with a teammate and I was still on banded pull-ups. And so he would run into the gym and pull the band down and I'd get in the band and do my pull-ups. And you're like, that. It's like teamwork. And then you see yourself progress. So like, okay, now I don't have to use that band. Yeah.
So that continued.
Obviously, yes.
That was 2009, 2010.
We moved.
Moved back to Texas.
Found out there was CrossFit at Rice, or
went back to work at Rice.
A CrossFit-esque class at Rice.
There's a fake CrossFit going on in Rice.
We joined that, and just kind of like got hooked. Got hooked into the CrossFit methodology. I got my level 1. I started training people at Rice, and it went on from there for me. But I think with CrossFit, it was the practice and the exercise. And I still didn't understand training progressions though.
You started to learn kind of the value of intensity.
The intensity, yes.
It's kind of the magic that happens when you push yourself close to your extremes.
Yeah.
And we've kind of changed our thinking on that over time with how often you should be doing that on the cardiovascular side. But you kind of like with the swimming, you learned that you could push your body pretty hard and be okay.
Right.
And that's something that's carried over.
The biggest takeaway from CrossFit for me, like just what you said, is pushing that intensity. I think the biggest thing I've learned from CrossFit is the improvement on my mindset. Like I have had, I've had so many different like mental achievements, I think, mental victories since I have done CrossFit, things that I used to be afraid of, things I used to worry about. When I think about the person I was before CrossFit, and now I feel like so much stronger mentally because of doing this simple sport, because of that exact thing you said. You push yourself in these ways that you didn't expect, and you do it darn near daily. Yeah. And you're like, I'm capable of so much more than I ever thought I was. I never had the confidence that I had when I, even doing all those other sports, I didn't gain that type of confidence because I wasn't pushing myself in the same way.
I think a lot of people think that like the way you get better at doing hard things is to like pump yourself up, give yourself a pep talk, like think positive thoughts and like believe in yourself. I can do this. But that doesn't really work for most people. The way you get more confident at doing those kinds of hard things is by actually doing them, proving to yourself that you can do them. And then the next time you go into another hard task, the confidence comes from knowing that you're prepared to do it because you've done it before.
Yeah.
Even if it's something that gradually gets harder over time, just that loop of doing what you don't think you can do proves that you can do it.
And doing things like that's the beauty of a CrossFit gym to me is like you walk into this space and you see all these other people doing these things and you do it for what just probably like peer pressure. But then over time you believe that you can. Like if you were to do that you probably wouldn't push yourself to do that on your own. You might be like, I can't do that or stop. But if you're in a group of people, you're more likely going to push yourself to do something. I was just talking to you about this. I taught swim lessons like little kid swim lessons, and I got to teach a lot of kids to jump off the side of a pool for the first time, and they probably would have never done this on their own if they were just like with me alone in a pool or with their parents. But like they're in a group of like 8 children, and they're all jumping off the side for the first time, and so they're going to get in line and they're probably going to jump even though they're scared.
That's true. That's a good point. And like we've found a way to kind of translate that into an online capacity too, by understanding what motivates people and giving them goals to shoot for in a virtual environment too. So let's talk more about like maybe what was missing from just doing CrossFit. What do you think you have changed with your training maybe in the last 8-9 years that has kind of changed your outcomes that you were getting from just doing CrossFit alone?
Oh, well, I always like wanted to get strong when I did CrossFit because I like saw the prescribed weights for the men and women, and I wanted to be doing the weight for women. And I understood that like to do that weight, I need to be well above that weight to be able to do this weight in a workout. So if it's like a 65-pound thruster in a workout, like I should be able to do a 95-pound thruster for several reps. So that 65 is an easy lightweight for me. I understood like how it works,
the balance, but
I didn't like know how to like get my body strong enough to do those things. Even when doing CrossFit, because you just didn't see I mean, this is totally different now, but back then in CrossFit, you didn't see strength pop up in
the overall training philosophy of most gyms.
Because you just can't
it's
have
like
can't have like here's like 30 minutes of strength and now here's like the workout and here it needs to be a much longer class in order to do that with a lot of people. But so I didn't see like strength progressions regularly, and so I didn't know how to like get my body stronger. I just knew how to practice. And I knew how to, go push myself, which is the things I had learned through all my other sports, but I still didn't learn how to train.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Everything we've talked about up until this point, including CrossFit, with some exceptions and some structures, is exercise.
Exercise and practice.
Right. What is the main difference between exercise and practice and training, and what kind of outcome difference do people see when they start combining training into their exercise?
Yeah, I think we learned about training.
I guess we're talking about your story. So tell us about the difference that it's, the change made in you.
I think we learned about training when we went to starting strength and learned about training progressions and how to like, take a movement, repeat it 15 times, for example. And then when you're successful, add weight and just do this weekly, monthly, and watch your strength increase. And this is a training progression for getting strong in whatever lift you're doing. And we had never done that before. And when we did it ourselves, we saw ourselves get stronger. And when we did it on our friends, we saw our friends get stronger. And the reason it didn't happen in the body pump classes is because you're doing something completely different every time. And the reason it didn't happen in CrossFit is because you can't really challenge yourself on, a back squat to get stronger at it in the middle of a workout where you're also running 400 meters, doing 20 box jumps, doing 30 kettlebell snatches, whatever. Right. Like you have to spend some time dedicated to building strength with the progressions that you're talking about. And I would agree that like starting strength was the beginning of that. But starting strength was really just like squat, overhead press, deadlift, bench press, and some chin ups. That's what I was going to say. But the principle was kind of burned into our mind then. And so you can take that principle and do it in a way that you're not going to get bored.
Yeah.
And
Or beat up.
Or beat up. Yeah.
And what we're talking about here is the concept of progressive overload. So talk about now, like, what does a typical week of your training look like that takes advantage of all the things that you did wrong, all the principles of exercise, but blended with training so that you stay fit, look like you work out, and actually have gotten stronger?
Yeah. So I think it starts like in the warm up with some practice. So you're going to practice some movements. You're going to like do some pull-ups and push-ups and air squats and things that you probably need to practice in order to get stronger on these. And they're just, great.
And develop the skill of the things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have the movements in the middle where you're using some progressive overload where you're just doing, squatting 3 times, however many reps at the same weight. Add weight next week when you get stronger. Dumbbell rows, the same idea. Dumbbell curls, same idea. And you're gonna do some of those, and you're gonna do those movements alone by themselves, and give yourself some rest in between.
You mean it's not like you do 20 high knees and
No.
6 burpees between each set to keep your heart rate
No,
up?
you're going to give yourself, some rest in between each set, and you're going to give yourself some rest in between that movement and the next, so that you can.
What's the point? What's the point of that? Isn't that a waste? Shouldn't you just keep your heart rate up for the calorie burn?
Not during this time. You're trying to like allow your muscles to recover, not get cold, but allow your muscles to recover so that you can use them to their fullest for that next set.
Okay, I think that's a common misconception out there because so many of the group classes now are focused on
Keeping
I should say the group exercise classes are based on like keeping your heart rate up as much as possible
and that's
to get
where,
the most burn.
Right. And that's where like the way that we write programming is we have the warm up to get you ready to practice some skills. We have some training in the middle there where you're training your body. You're doing some squats, you're doing some rows, you're doing some curls, you're doing some triceps, whatever it is that day. And then you're doing some cardiovascular work. You're pushing that intensity there at the end, whether it's just, it can be like some ab and some glute and some jump rope mixed in that is going to crush you, or it can be a full on like CrossFit type of workout that's going to crush you. But you're going to feel all of those pieces within an hour long or whatever workout.
And that's kind of the exercise portion of the workout.
Yes.
And when we talked about how CrossFit is mainly exercise, sometimes there's a little bit of training in there.
I would say that it's practice and exercise because, in like an hour long class, I used to format my class. You're doing a lot of practice. You're practicing skills.
Yeah.
You're warming up. You're making sure that you're moving effectively and efficiently with practice. And then you're exercising at the end of the last 20 minutes are like your exercise because you're like, okay, we're ready. Our equipment's out. 3, 2, 1, go. The clock is running.
But the thing about CrossFit we found was like every workout, I guess there could be some exceptions out there, but everything is done at the highest intensity. You're either doing an AMRAP in X amount of time, and the goal is to move as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Or it's a rounds for time thing, like 5 rounds for time of these things. Since it's
Or
for
Tabata,
time, the point is, get your heart rate up really high.
To push intensity
and that's
every
great.
workout.
That works. But if that's all you're doing, then number one, you're putting so much stress on your nervous system by taking yourself into that pain cave so many times per week. And you're using all of your recovery resources for all this high intensity exercise and none of it for the training that has the potential to change your body composition more and make you stronger. I feel like if we had only stuck with CrossFit, or you had only stuck with CrossFit, for the last, how long has it been?
Yeah, like 12 or 13 years.
14 years, like you would be in a completely different place physically, body composition wise, strength wise.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't think that, I should be careful how I say this. There is a way to do it, but I don't think for people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s that doing 5 normal CrossFit classes per week is the road to longevity, injury resistance. I think people are going to get burnt out and probably beat up pretty bad. I think the approach that we've taken in the last, since starting, starting CrossFit and making a change is a much more sustainable approach for the long term.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about like we still do, like I said, we still do push the intensity, but sometimes it's in short bursts. Sometimes it's longer duration. And then over the course of a week, how many times are you pushing into that pain cave on the exercise front versus the times that, like when we were just doing CrossFit 5 times a week?
We work out 5 days a week in general. And so I would probably say we're trying to push into intensity 3 days a week.
In different time durations.
In different time durations, like one super short, one medium, and one long.
Yeah.
On average. And yeah.
And then we bring intensity.
Yeah, you bring intensity
into our training too. Like, you know, that's another place where the exercise classes will trip you up. It's like, all right, we're all going to do 3 sets of 10 rows, and then we're going to move on to 3 sets of 10 presses. Like, what if that's not hard for you? What if that never pushes you to the effort level that causes strength adaptations and muscle growth? Like, you know,
that's why we use hard sets, is because we're not prescribing, you do 10 reps, we're prescribing do somewhere between 8 and 15, and you stop whenever, right before failure, when you've felt that intensity. But I don't know when you're going to feel intensity.
Right.
You know, based on the weight, like you're going to stop whenever you're a rep or two before failure, so that you can bring your dumbbell row to intensity. So you're bringing the intensity every day that you work out, just in different capacities.
And that philosophy like lowers the barrier to entry so much too, because it's not about like, can you lift heavy weights? It doesn't matter. Like, as long as you are lifting a weight in a safe way that brings you close to your own.
It can be
capacity.
10 pounds
doesn't
on
matter
that
what
dumbbell
the weight
row,
is.
or it could be 50 pounds. You can feel intensity based on where you've started and your level, no matter what that weight is. And then when you hit that top of that rep range, it's like, okay, you've done around 15 reps for every set. Let's move up. It's time, you know.
That's how progressive overload works.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see us continuing to work out with this methodology for the indefinite future.
Yes, me too.
Yeah, it's fun. It works on the fitness side of things. It works on the strength side of things. And I mean, okay, so zoom out now from where you are now, strength wise versus high school.
So much.
How much could you leg press now?
Like when I look back at my high school pictures and stuff, I was like, I was much bigger, but I was like not strong. I was like plumper.
Yeah, you've had a big body composition change.
Yeah,
and a lot of that has to do with your nutrition too.
Yes, that's what I say. Like, I mean, I was doing swim team and soccer, and I was eating a Twix and a Coke for lunch. Like I knew zero about nutrition back then. I was like, this is fueling me. Yes. No, I mean,
it is calories.
It is calories. I had some chips on the way to the swim practice in the morning. You know, I mean, it was just trash.
Yeah.
But you know,
it was the standard American
diet.
You're
16 and you can do whatever you want back then.
Yeah.
But it was not optimal to the training, the practice and stuff I was doing. But what were we talking about?
I think we can probably.
I was going to mention, but you were talking about body composition.
Oh, yeah.
And then when I owned Try It CrossFit and I see some of those pictures of myself, I was like, I wasn't like super, super skinny. I was just like frail looking.
You were under muscled.
I was under muscled. Yeah. So I didn't have, like a ton of body fat on me, but I was just like, didn't have muscle. And when I look at those pictures, I was like, dang, like, I thought I was strong. There's no way I was strong back then.
But that's pretty much the result of just doing exercise.
Yeah.
And not taking advantage of some of the principles of training.
Yeah.
So we've got this training program. Why should who's a good candidate to sign up for Built, and why should they?
Yes.
And specifically, I don't know the demographics of our podcast, men versus women, but I feel like a lot of women don't think that strength training is for them.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to talk about, is just like, if you feel like you're in a place where you've just like crushed yourself with the cardio type classes or the group classes, but you've never really like gotten that aesthetic that you were looking for, because it's about health. It is truly about health, but people do work hard for 5 days a week and they want the aesthetic part too. And if you've done that for a long time and you've just never gotten that, then it's probably due to like not properly training yourself. You've probably done a ton of exercise, but you've never really properly like trained with some progressive overloads. And that's how you're going to like put on some muscle. And as we age, it's so important to put on muscle. Like, we need to be able to like continue to like stand up off of a chair. without pushing ourselves with our hands. We need to be able to like pick up things safely, children and strollers and, whatever else, dog food, whatever we're lifting safely. Like the longer you can keep your strength, the longer you're going to be able to like live a fun and active lifestyle. And that's just not getting it done by crushing yourself on a run, crushing yourself in these classes where you have no weights.
And the misconception that strength training is going to make you bulky
I know.
is really just, it's a way out to not open yourself up to the possibility of trying something that maybe you're a little bit afraid of.
Yeah. The bulkiness is going to come from the food. So like people who have huge muscles eat tons and tons and tons of calories, and they're training like if you see the CrossFit games and you're like, those girls look too bulky for me, that's never going to happen to you if you're not training like and you're not in the gym 8 hours a day and you're not eating 3,000 plus calories, or something.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean,
the
I've
way that
been
we
trying to
train
get
people,
bulky for the last 10 years and it hasn't worked.
The way that we train people and people who have a normal lifestyle, that's not going to happen to them. Some people do honestly put on more muscle easier, but we have clients that generally put on muscle easier than others, but we help them.
Yeah, doesn't mean you're just going to blow up overnight.
Right.
And I would say to the men that are listening to this also, like, in the period that I discovered strength training, I saw a huge improvement in just my overall confidence, like the way that I felt walking into a restaurant, a crowded room, like the way that I looked filling out a t-shirt. Like I carried myself with my head held higher as I got stronger. It just gives you this underlying confidence that you can handle hard situations, that you're capable of doing hard things. And the good thing about that strength that you build when you're really focused on building strength is it just builds this foundation for your overall health and fitness. Like I think maybe talked about this in a podcast a couple of weeks ago. Like, now strength training is a part of my training, but the strength that I built when following a dedicated strength program for 3-6 months, I still have that strength.
Yeah.
8 years later. I mean, with minimal maintenance of it. Like I'm not in a pursuit to get the strongest of my whole life, but I can still lift 90% of the most that I ever could.
Yeah.
So it's like investing in something that's going to have a long lasting return is really stinking awesome.
Yeah. And in the way that we train ourselves and our clients, we vary the training progressions that we do so that they prevent burnout, so that like we overuse, and so that like it works with like the time of year, like we're approaching summer. I'm making the training a little bit shorter, and I'm making like, more like, so that people can like take a mental and a physical break from like the linear progression of just like 3x5, add 5 pounds like that. That can be, you can't do that forever. Right. Physically, you need to take a break, and it's mentally challenging and physically challenging. Yeah. So I vary that. So if you've never done that, followed a true linear progression and you joined in something like the Built program we're releasing, like you will expect to see some impressive strength gains over the 3 months, just because you're going to take advantage of those newbie gains, and you're going to just like,
I mean, you literally might be able to squat 100 pounds more after 3 months.
Yeah.
Like, or more.
Right.
Yeah. And even though we have this program open for registration, I guess we should mention the dates. Registration closes May 31st because the workouts start on June 6th.
I think it's June 5th, but the first Monday of June.
Yeah, first Monday. There's buttons saying hello with a nice shake. And like I said, if you sign up today, you can save $100 over the price that it goes up to tomorrow. And included in your membership, you'll have access to a private community group of other members for support, as well as your coaches. Yeah. Coaches are always going to be there. And I'm also going to give you a nutrition plan to follow along with your own custom macros if tracking your food sounds like something that you want to do. And you can, if strength training isn't your jam right now, you can still work with us in the training philosophy that we talked about, our overall approach to. You can apply for your own customized program based on our philosophy too. Right. All right. digitalbarbell.com/built, digitalbarbell.com/Blakley story. No. But I hope you guys enjoyed this, and we'll catch you next week. Whew. We did it. That was long.